Jones, Singing News Magazine. Welcome to the Fourth Page Podcast. And today we are honored to have what I feel is one of the greatest living legends in Southern gospel music today, the one and only Ronny Hinson. We are so glad that you are here today.
Thank you, Danny Jones, and you can lay it on thick if you want to.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. And, of course, anybody who's followed gospel music at all recognizes the name Hinson. And let's go back to the earliest days of the Hinson family. Did you ever think at any time that the family name Hinson would be so well respected by gospel music for generations?
Danny, I don't know that I ever thought that it would go that far, but I did feel like that God had made a promise to me one time that He would take us all the way to the top of the field of music that we wanted to be in, that we chose to be in, and that's good old church music, Southern gospel music, and nothing like it. And He said, if you'll take me with you, I'll take you all the way to the top. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being at the top if your message is right and you can influence that many more people. And so, but as far as knowing the real mark that our name has made, I didn't. And you, as a kid growing up, you don't think about that. You just want to get out on the stage and sing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, but God is good.
The Hinsons had so many great songs throughout the years, but there's always, when you look back, there's always a year that seems to stand out among the rest. In your opinion, what was the best year of the Hinsons?
Well, of course, the break-in song that we had, the Lighthouse, in the 70s was the song that moved us, I guess, from the West Coast back east, and probably was what broke the doors open for us. But I think somewhere around 78, 79 was our and that's way back there. I can't believe I'm saying, I'm marking myself with age. But 78, 79 was probably some strong years, 80, 81, right around the change of that decade.
The date book was full. The songs were being played on radio right and left. Out there, 4 tremendously talented vocalists, had a great band. It just seemed like the sky was the limit for the Hinsons at that time. Going back from the very earliest days in California, was it difficult to move from home and from family, move over into the East Coast? Did it feel like it was a big necessary move? Was it something you just wanted to do to be able to do this more? Was it a big challenge to move it?
Well, there's a deep story in that and how we made the transition, but probably that we wouldn't have time for. But I can highlight that if I can.
Sure.
It was very difficult. Probably, I founded the Hinsons, and the rest of the kids were younger. Of course, when you turn them loose on stage, they carried the ball. But I knew that as far as our type of music at that time, Southern gospel, we were selling a boat where there wasn't any water out there on the West Coast because the contemporary music had kind of dominated. And so I knew that we would not go any further than just up and down the coast if there wasn't a move made. We happened to meet, I had written the song, The Lighthouse, and we were of the same church affiliation as the Goodman family. And together we did a big youth rally that the organization that we had always been involved in was putting on in Arizona, and Prescott, Arizona. And I came there and I sang. The family sang, and we sang The Lighthouse that we'd just written, and they heard it for the first time. And Rusty fell in love with it, and he wanted to record it, and so he kind of urged us, to make the transition, and I knew that we were going to just kind of wilt on the vine if we didn't get back into what we called the Bible Belt, where Southern gospel music was really the central point of it. And so we made that transaction by selling everything we had, and and really, truthfully, Les Beasley with the Florida Boys had a lot to do with the success of the Hinsons and how we made that transition, because we took a tour out east in an old bus, and we broke down in the bus, and we were in a little town called Hornwall, Tennessee, where my dad was raised until he left at 13 years old as an orphan. And so we were staying with his cousin, and our bus was broke down, and it was parked out near the fence, and we were living on that old bus. And we had army cots tied to the sides, and wood paneling was our conversion. And the engine was shot, and we were thousands of miles from home, California. And so sleeping on that bus every morning, I would hear a knock on the bus door, and I'd go to the door with my hair all messed up, and there'd be somebody else saying, this bus parked out here by this fence looks like it's for sale. How much you want for it? I'd say it's not for sale. It was our living quarters. And so we would, the next day, same thing. About the fourth time, the Lord just seemed to impress me. You need to take up somebody on an offer. So I said, what would you give for it? And they said, well, we'll give you $3,500. I said, yeah, we'll take that, $3,500. So before I knew it, I said, now let me tell you about this. I said, the engine it's unique. You don't have to change the oil on it at all. I said, you just pour a can through and catch it on the bottom. And you can and he said, that's all right. Said, everybody in our group is diesel mechanics, and said, we'll fix it, and we'll take it for $3,500. And so we took our army cots out, put them in a U-Haul truck, and tied them to the side, and headed back to California in the back of a U-Haul truck. And when we got to California, about 3 or 4 days after that, we got a call from Les and them, and said, if at the time we had been out there on that tour, we had sung for the Jubilee and made a guest appearance. And he said, we have a lot of letters and cards saying we want to see those people that family that sang the Lighthouse. And he said, if you can be back here in a few days, we're filming, and said we'd love to, film some more. Mm-hmm. Well, we turned right around, and we were broke when we got home. We'd spent that $3,500 paying for that rental truck and food for 13 kids and adults, and so we came back in my dad's '67 Buick LeSabre, pulling a U-Haul trailer, and came all the way back and did I think it was a year's filming of Jubilee, and the rest was history. Gospel music. We were able to come into the homes of millions of people through the gospel singing Jubilee, and that I will always owe to Les Beasley.
Yeah, it opened a lot of doors, no doubt. It helped the family become acquainted with concert promoters, church pastors, and it just blossomed from there. And then you go all the way up, and you follow the great songs that the family has been associated with down through the years. But one of the last songs that went number one for the family before the retirement was probably very unique in the fact of you took the concept of a bridge and tied it to mercy, and wrote the song Mercy Built a Bridge. I think it was the family's last number one song before the retirement. How did that song
1988.
That's right. How did that song come about?
Well, I write songs by with different ways, different means. I'll read a newspaper. I'll listen to somebody preach. But I knew somebody who told me at an altar where I was praying with them, said, "There's no way that I can ever get to God. I've done so wrong, so bad." And I said, "Well, don't give up. Keep asking God." I said, "If you would just ask Him," I said, "there's no journey that you have to take or no path you have to forge or anything like that to get back to God." I said, "He's waiting right where you left Him." And so he said, "There's no way I can get across this big valley that I seem to not be able to conquer." And I prayed with him and prayed with him and prayed with him and watched that man little by little as he stayed at that altar and didn't give up. Of course, it's not that hard to ask the Lord to come into you, but he thought it was. And I watched God build a bridge. And when he got up from that altar, he was changed. He is restored, and he knew he was. And he said that to me. He said, "I found a bridge. I found a bridge." And so I went and wrote that song, "Mercy Built a Bridge."
I forgot who told me this years ago, and I dearly wish I could remember. But they said a songwriter's best friend can be the ears. If you're just listening, there are little nuggets out there that become verses and choruses and very, just the same example of what you just said there. And that phrase has always stuck with me. What's in your songwriter's toolkit? If you were to try to explain to you what a songwriter is in gospel music, and you opened up a toolkit and said, "All right, you need this, you need this, you need that," what would be in your toolkit?
Well, I would hope that those ears you were talking about would be, and I think those ears have to be connected to a heart that's willing to reach out and put themselves in that person's condition and situation. If I'm passive, I'm liable to miss your need. And I write songs that are answers to needs, and that's what I pride myself, if that's an okay word to use, in being sensitive to that, because but for the grace of God, there go I. Mm-hmm. And so I think, first of all, you got to have that passion to want to help people, and then you've got to have those ears. You'll not say anything, as I said, that hadn't already been said, but you got to say it different, and that goes for the person that you're using as a source. If you say something that's pretty cliche, I'm liable to pass on it, But if you say it different, then that part of me that's honed to catch it different and to say it, relay it different, picks up on it, and the ability not to forget it, mm-hmm. That's a tool that I. As you get a little older, you can forget a whole lot easier. And right. I've lost some great thoughts that I know would have been good songs, by not being able to remember them like I used to, but relying on I'll be able to put that away in my memory bank. But I write a lot more down than I used to.
I totally understand that. Is there in the home of Ronny Hinson today, if someone were to walk into your home, would they be able to find the original manuscripts of some of the great songs that you have written? Do you still have those, or have they over time just kind of drifted away for some reason?
I have a few of them, or say some of them, not all of them. Mm-hmm. Probably songs that I should have kept the manuscript to, the original draft of them, that I didn't. But then I've got songs like "Mercy Built a Bridge," songs like Oasis. Oasis, I have the original napkin that I pulled from the side of my brother's bed, and went to the end of the hallway and wrote the song. Sometimes life is like a burning desert. The days were miles, there would be a million wide. And I've still got that. My mother, when she passed away, of course, all of her Bibles and stuff were distributed to different people, and I knew she had the original draft of the Lighthouse on a piece of toilet paper in her Bible somewhere, but I didn't know which Bible because she had plenty of Bibles, and I failed to be able to get my hands on that, and so I don't know where it's at. And but I know she told me one time that she had that, and she was holding it for me, and I thought it was in safekeeping, so I never, never bothered with trying to retrieve it. But got some of those.
You have become the songwriting hero, if you will, to many of today's current songwriters. If I were to ask you who your songwriting hero was, who would you respond with?
I'd have to say Rusty Goodwin, yeah, and he was in a sense, my mentor, and he was probably, after the Lighthouse had I don't know that it's ever peaked, but it's still strong today. But when it had done its initial impact, he called me into his office and he said, "Now don't you be a one-song wonder." He said, "If you've got that one in you, you've got another one." And he inspired me to write "He Pilots My Ship," and and we traded a lot of ideas and tossed a lot of things around. And last time I saw Rusty was in the basement, a little fellowship dinner they had for him at his benefit sing when he was not too far from passing away. And he was in a wheelchair, and he I put my forehead to his forehead, and he said, "You're the man, aren't you, Ronnie?" And I said, "No, you're the man, Rusty." And then we both looked up and said, "He's the man." Yeah. And it was the last time I saw him. And he was my hero in songwriting.
Yeah, no doubt.
In many other ways.
Yeah, Rusty was just a great person from everybody that I've talked to along the way. I only got to meet Rusty 2 or 3 times, but he always came across as a man of integrity, a man of great character, and a cheerleader. He wanted to see others succeed, and that's one. And you're the same way.
Well,
I've seen Ronny Hinson, cheering on figuratively and literally some of the new artists in gospel music, because you know what it's like. You know what it's like to be the new group on the scene,
yeah.
And you've been able to experience the joy and the less than glorious times that come with that. Today, Ronny Hinson is a soloist. He's singing in churches and concerts, still armed with great songs. But I have to ask this question. Now that the pressure of group ownership is not part of the equation, you're not having to worry about feeding a bus, are you able to enjoy what you're doing a little bit more, perhaps?
I am. I never thought I would be interested in getting back into a bus, but my miles are stretching out so much that I'm thinking about it. I'm looking for a bus.
Okay.
But of course, I know if you got a bus, you got a breakdown, and that's what you're referring to, feeding a bus, and yeah, you better put back for that. And I miss the camaraderie of the group. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of fun on stage doing what we were called to do, and all the spontaneous things that happen on a stage when you've got several different personalities and different ideas going, and everybody on the stage was tight. I mean, it was one thing we instilled in everybody is it was loose feeling, so that the audience wasn't all tensed up, but it was a well-oiled machine, and a lot of the stuff that happened was intended. But those things that you couldn't stop them from happening, they're just bound to happen at some time. We just enjoyed that, and I could not wait at the same time to get off the stage and get on the bus with the boys, and the camaraderie, and we didn't know what going to sleep was, and that kind of thing. And the responsibility as the oldest in the group to make sure that all of that kept going, and kept working right. I remember nights when we'd stop in the middle of the night and to fuel up, and at that time people would get off the bus and go into the truck stops and all, and you would wonder if everybody was on the bus when the bus took off again, because my precious older brother Harold drove for us, and he was merciless. That bus is rolling, and I remember reaching across the aisle to the other bunk and seeing if my brother Kenny had made it back to the bus, or Larry, or one of the guys in the band, and those were always pressures for me, to make sure that nothing went wrong, and life on the road on that bus. But now it's me and my precious sweet wife, who Lisa, who kind of she's got that responsibility for me now, taking care of me, making sure I'm back in the car, and But there's a relief there of not having to. I mean, we had a big roster of people on that bus, and
We did.
and working back at the office, and it was quite a responsibility, and that load has lifted, and I'm a lot more free to think ministry and that kind of thing. Yeah.
You just.
I hope that's what you.
Oh, that's exactly where I was going. You alluded to something too that sometimes gets left out of interviews: the support staff. Okay, yes, there are the vocalists on stage and there's the band, but there are people in the office. There are people who. Like a booking agent, the record companies, all those different things, that all of their contributions make a group what it is. And during the heyday of the Hinsons, you had some of the top in the business in your corner, really, really helping promote the group.
Yeah, and we had booking agencies. Century 2 at the time was really hopping, and Becky, and at that time Sonny Simmons, who's deceased, but we just and band members. I'm telling you, you could not. Still to this day, and this week, we got word that one of our band members, he lives in Dallas now, has COVID, was in the hospital and ICU, and all the band members that are still living were rallying behind him, and we were all texting one another and talking to one another, and we're all in close proximity in our hearts with each other still today, and I feel like a dad to them. And they will tell you, with all the success that a lot of those musicians have had in Nashville, there's some of the top musicians, Scott Sanders, Kelly Back, just go on, and they will tell you that some of their greatest times was with the Hinsons on the bus and on the stage and creating music.
If you go back, fortunately there are videos of the Hinsons, and when you find the concert videos, everybody on stage is so into what's going on, and you mentioned this earlier, and that's really one of the things that made it work. Everybody had a unified goal. When they walked onto the stage, for that 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, they were all working toward the same goal, and it just worked every night. And there you were on the end, a very talented sister, two talented brothers, and at any time during a program, did you ever look over at Kenny or Larry or Yvon and just think, okay, no matter what I throw over there, no matter what I call next, whatever, I know they're not going to drop the ball. You had to have complete confidence in what they did because everybody was just so good. Is there anything that you ever threw at anybody that just kind of surprised you with what they did?
There was one time, and we have laughed about it. My brother Larry passed away not too long ago, and went home to be with the Lord. And we had laughed about it. And my little sister Yvon sang the stars out of the sky. I mean, she still sings. I mean, she's great now in her abilities to sing and anointed. We told her one time, we said, Yvon, you know, all the guys are doing the talking and we're not doing it, you know, you're not doing anything but singing. Just say something, you know, on your heart, you know, and so that you can intermingle with the verbiage that's being talked up to set up the songs. Nothing happened, and that night it went by, and we got no response from her. A couple of nights, no response. Finally, one night we were right in the middle of a barn burner song. No, it was a slow song, and just one of those rip your heart songs out. And she walks up and taps Kenny on the shoulder while he's singing, and the way she did it was so, it shocked him, and he stopped. He said, she said, and she went into a real formal. She hadn't talked very much. She went into a formal voice, and she said, and like Kenny was somebody distant from her. She said, "Brother Kenny," she said, "the Lord's impressed me to have us sing Unclouded Day." And it wasn't the name of it, you know, Unclouded Day.
Yeah.
Uncloudy Day, she said. And we lost it. All of us lost it on stage. I mean, it was the band members, everybody just lost it because she had waited and tried to think this out. How am I going to do this? And this was all being processed in her mind, and she had never done it before. And so she just picked the wrong time to do it. We were just tearing the patch up with a heart wrencher, you know, and the Lord impressed her to sing Uncloudy Day.
So I imagine the chatter on the bus that night was interesting.
Yeah, it was funny. And Kenny could not contain himself when he would get tickled. It wouldn't matter where it was, or you know, he screamed. He went just and it was just a moment, you know. But usually, most of the time, there was a well-oiled machine. And my little sister's so precious, she's welcome to do that anytime she wants to.
All right. Our guest today is Ronny Hinson. We'll have more on the Fourth Page podcast right after this. Welcome back to the Fourth Page podcast. Our guest today, Ronny Hinson. And I can say this for myself, and I feel like I'm speaking for literally thousands upon thousands of gospel music fans. The day the Hinsons retired was not a very happy day for a lot of people. And a lot of people don't really know the story of why the bus pulled in for the final time. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, we were in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and singing on a Sunday afternoon when Kenny, who had, since he was 17 years old, said he felt the call to preach. And you got to understand, and I didn't at one point understand, but it took me a little while, but I began to realize why he would approach it the way that he did. But he stepped up on the bus after the concert and said, "I want to tell you that, you know, I'm leaving." And so everybody was just shocked, you know, and it was just kind of unexpected, and you thought that he would be the last one to go. And so he told us why. He said, I felt for a long time, I was called to preach, and I just feel like I've got to do that. And I didn't know, and nobody knew that just 5 or 6, 7 years later, he would be gone. Mm-hmm. And so that was in '88, and he passed in '95, and was diagnosed with kidney cancer in '93, I believe it was. And so everybody was just shocked, but he felt like he had to do it. And so, of course, there was not anything anybody could do about that. And he felt like it was God, and he later proved out that it was God. He did say to us that he, did not give us probably ample time to, but that he didn't know how to do that because he had all these different people that were dependent on this group mm-hmm. running and going. Mm-hmm. And he did not know how to approach that. And he said he spent many hours crying about it, praying about it, talking about it to himself, and he didn't know how to deal with that. But everybody that was in that group loves him to this day and loved him after that. And but it was people would say to me, "Why don't you get another singer and pick up and go?" I said, I don't want to be like a lot of groups in the times past that you didn't know who was coming to hear you, who you were coming to hear. And so I said, we'll just leave it at that. So as far as the Hinsons leaving the road, that was probably my decision not to go on, but it was his decision, his personal right, like anybody has, to make that decision to leave himself. Well, it's just a lot more rested on him than a lot of other singers that have decided, I want to go do something else.
Right. I mean, replacing a Kenny Hinson is not just something you can put an application on a talk board somewhere. You know, it's a different thing. And two, that was part of what made it work, the unity between the siblings, and there was just something about family that made the Hinsons what they were. But time rolls on, things change, but God's not done. He's found a place for you. You're still writing. You've had some great songs recently. You're still ministering, and as you look back over your life, do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I probably the one regret that I have is that I didn't keep the momentum going that I had when we did go off the road, because there was a lot more that I could have done to stay visible in the mainstream Southern gospel, and I'm attempting to do that now, and trying to become more visible. And I think, and let me say this. What I want to do is take the tradition that I bring to the table, mm-hmm. and I want to apply it to the changes that are being made in gospel music today. And I think that message music, I've been out there for 50-something years, and I still think that in the face of those audiences, whether it be in a concert hall or a church, those people still have the same needs they had back in the 80s and the 90s. When something happens that devastates their lives, they hurt, and they need to know that God is the answer. I still think in my songs is incorporated that message, and I want to try to apply that to the changes that are being made, because the music is a little bit different than what it was back in the 80s, and I'm not against that. I would say some of the greatest groups that gospel music's ever had are happening right now. And if anybody wants me to get upset, it's to talk about or run down people who are out there right now trying to make it happen the best way they know how, and trying to be sensitive to God and their audiences. But I think in some cases, message might be a little bit overridden, and I love that driving force of that message that throws you a rope when you're in trouble, lets you see a lighthouse when you're drowned.
Yeah, that's one of the things that sets gospel music apart from a lot of the other forms of music. There is a message that you can put right here. It's heart music, and you've been no doubt an expert at helping provide that. Two more questions, and these are the type questions that you get asked a lot, but it's just mainly to have it on record. Anybody know the number of times the Lighthouse has been recorded?
Wish I did. I wish I had a record of that. Probably, and how do you say this? It's not with remorse or anything, or bitterness that I say this, but thousands and thousands of groups have recorded the Lighthouse that basically, in a sense, were ignorant to the laws and didn't pay the royalties, and just off of the Lighthouse alone, I'd probably be financially, set pretty good, which didn't happen because it was one of those. It's one of those songs that's just been everybody recorded it, but when you, so there's no way to measure. I can tell you some of the major groups that recorded it and did what they were supposed to do, but whether a group was ignorant to the fact that you pay royalties on those songs or what, it just makes it impossible to tell how many groups or soloists or whatever have recorded it. But thank God, looking at it from a non-business sense, thank God that they did, because it probably touched somebody's life with it, and that's what ultimately it's all about. Right. And so that's the main goal. But no way to know.
I'm sure if there were, the number would be staggering.
Yeah.
And then one final question, and this is probably the most challenging question of all from a songwriter. Outside of the Lighthouse, your favorite song that you have written?
That's been recorded by the family or
anybody. Just your favorite song that you have written other than the Lighthouse. That's like asking you to choose between your children, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's a little song that I tear up every time I sang it, and it's not been exploited. My son Bo recorded it, and I believe the Kingsmen recorded it, and I believe they did. It's called Lost Sheep, and it paints a picture of a shepherd in the night, in the storm, going out to find its lost sheep, and finds it wounded, broken, puts it over his shoulder and carries it back to the fold. And when I see that in a picture form, I see it with glasses on, because I see it as me. And I'm reminded of how much he cares. And probably, other than the Lighthouse, that song moves me more than anything.
Yeah.
And got some brand new songs that I've just recorded on the 50th year Lighthouse anniversary celebration. It's coming out on a new project. I'm excited about them. And the Lighthouse has been, as you say, recorded by everybody. I saw the other day, once again, I saw Elvis singing it alongside the Donnie Sumner and the Stamps, and wow, his rendition. Wow, everybody's got a. How do you outdo Rusty Goodman's rendition of the Lighthouse, and my own brother Kenny, and every group that sung it. I've always said the Lighthouse is not just Ronny Hinson's song. It belongs to gospel music, because everybody has sung that song and had their version of it, just churning out there in their audiences. And I hear them today saying there's not a time that we don't go on stage that we don't have to sing the Lighthouse, or we're asked to. And but I thought I'd just throw it out on this new project for the sake of it being from the writer's perspective, because I was the first one to ever hear it. It was like God reached down and whispered in my ear these words, and I got to hear it first and wrote it down. And every time I get to where I think, boy, you're a great songwriter, God reminds me that the biggest song I ever wrote, I never laid eyes on a lighthouse, didn't know what their function was, and went out to find my first lighthouse after I'd written it, and everybody was the big hoopla about it. I still didn't know what is all of that about. And I rode a bicycle 40 miles out and found that lighthouse, and sat there and wept and looked at it and knew that what God had fed into my spirit was what I was looking at in the natural now. And but I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great after 50 years of it being number one? I think it was, I haven't got the total history on it, but I know it was number one at least 9 times. And I'm gonna come to Singing News and say, hey, give me that monthly. But I don't know if it was more than that. I know one of the other Goodman songs, I think Aaron and Eddie Crook's song was a big.
What a Beautiful Day.
What a Beautiful Day was 11 times, I know. I don't know if Lighthouse was.
Lighthouse, I think, was 9 times, but it wasn't 9 consecutive months.
Yeah.
There were a couple months back to back. Then it might skip and then come right back.
And our family, the Hinsons, were up there pulling some of the strength from it. We'd have it. I think we had it to 4 or 7, something like that. But of course, the Goodmans were well known, and they were at their peak, man, and it shot right to the top. And but anyway, I thought, wouldn't it be great if something like that, an old song like that, happened again?
Yeah.
And so I've recorded it as our 50th year celebration.
Well, we'll have to be looking for that. And man, we appreciate you coming by today. That's an honor to have Ronny Hinson here on the Fourth Page podcast. I mean, I know my life has been shaped by you and your family and so many others. I mean, it's just thank God for Ronny Hinson. Thank God for the Lighthouse. Thank God for the Hinsons. It's just you're such a big part of our world.
Thank God for Southern gospel music.
Yeah,
it's still my heartbeat. And I want to see it get bigger and bigger and bigger because of that message. And somebody said, well, I'd rather hear you sing than hear my preacher preach. And I said, don't ever say that, because that's like Saul persecuting the church. It's like nothing can take the place of the preaching of the word. But that message in a song it can go a long ways in changing people's lives. And so that's what I want to encourage and keep that message strong in your songs.
Yeah. Our guest today has been Ronny Hinson. You've been watching the Fourth Page Podcast. Stay